Those who've been following my channel for a while know my stance on sequels. I'm not happy when well-developed, well-rounded stories are shaken up in attempts to recapture their former glory and popularity. The Devil Wears Prada was no exception to my bias. I tried to push my dissatisfaction aside beforehand. After all, this is a cult and legendary project that shaped my childhood and youth and reflects the era and trends of the 1000s. And most importantly, tells about the importance of ordinary human values, which we must not forget in the race for successful success. In the first part of The Devil Wears Prada, everything amazed me at the time, even watching it now. The actors, the backstage of fashion magazines, the details of the fashion world, all of this brings me into frantic delight. The main character's charisma was conveyed through visual elements alone, and Miranda's eyes oozed that same caustic quality. This character was simultaneously powerful and, at times, unhappy, a woman with such willpower who achieved such heights thanks to her character, that you simultaneously admire her, want to be her, and yet fear and even hate her. And in contrast to that personality, we were presented with the warm, lovely and frankly ordinary Andy, and Anne Hathaway was a million times perfect for the role. Her good nature was transmitted across the screen from the moment she appeared on camera, and the chemistry between Andy and Miranda was simply incredible. By the end of the film you want to smile and cry at the same time. That's what a cult film with a capital C is. I didn't want to ruin my experience by watching the second part, but curiosity got the better of me. So many positive things had been said about this film on social media. So I gave my fear a good kick in the pants, challenged myself and headed to the cinema for a dose of excitement. My name is Catherine, and this is my personal and frankly inconsequential opinion and review on the film The Devil Wears Prada. Before I begin, I would like to send my immense gratitude to my supporters on Boosty. This channel wouldn't exist without you. If you'd like to support me, please use this QR code displayed. Also, a huge thank you for subscribing to my channel. The film opens with a glimpse of Andy as an adult. Here, friends, since these shorts, I want to pause for a moment and ask you some questions. I'm not a professional videographer, and I'm far from technical or digital. My color correction skills are limited to the built-in iPhone filters. But please tell me, what happened to the image? While it used to be bright, rich, delicious, and most importantly, vibrant, now it's simply washed out and lacking all its color. This isn't just about The Devil Wears Prada. In general, since the 2020s, film imagery has become increasingly blunt and tasteless. Well, either just me or creator of this channel has gone completely nuts, and I don't deny it. So, all grown up, Andy holds a prestigious job as a journalist, and not just anywhere, but at a well-known city publishing house. And right now she's receiving an award, a well-deserved reward for her work. But here's the problem. Right during the award ceremony, she and her entire department are fired via text message. In the heat of the moment, she emotionally explains during her speech that she was fired and that it contradicts universal human values. After all, we humans should treat each other with respect, and such a drastic reduction in favor of trends toward optimization and mass layoffs shouldn't happen. Her speech quickly spread across social media, and from the very beginning the main problem was laid out. The world has changed, we can't deny it. Trends are now set faster, and companies are increasingly optimizing processes, cutting staff and personnel. And now users' attention is focused on computers. Everyone is switching to various artificial intelligence systems, replacing human workers and shrinking the most productive departments. Well, this has affected not only journalism but also fashion. Due to yet another social media scandal, almost comparable in scope to the Epstein scandal, the fashion magazine where incredible, flamboyant and powerful Miranda worked has come under intense criticism and harassment. So our unemployed journalist is destined to meet this incredible woman again, and the head of the entire fashion holding company appoints Andy to save her reputation. What kind of scandal took place? What happened? To whom? When? Follow the latest cinematic trends we want to be taught, of course, but the filmmakers will introduce familiar characters.
Or was I?
Or not. And now, I want to twist my unpopular opinion to the maximum. The thing is, from the moment Andy returns to Miranda's apartment, we're bombarded with unhealthy flashbacks. It's as if the creators are trying to manipulate us, playing on nostalgia. Like, look, Andy, just like before, is working for a woman like that. Miranda calls her second Emily again, and once again she is disregarded. But I didn't like at all how, think about it, a grown-up, accomplished girl who had received a worthy and a popular title of journalist, who had won more than one award, having worked and built a career for more than 20 years in different countries, was again running errands on tiptoe after Miranda, trying to prove her importance and superiority to her. This completely ruins the whole meaning and the whole ending of the first part, in which Andy, seeing the cycle of hypocrisy and sycophancy happening in the fashion industry, go out of it and choose to live for herself. Choose herself. Unfortunately, the creators completely negative this, and it's the shame we're seeing this. I adore Anne Hathaway, I really love this actress, but what's wrong with her in this film? What's with the outer makeup? And ultimately, I just want to ask, who is she playing here? Again, no longer a child but a grown woman with a clearly conscious and deliberate case. Why was she told to run around here comically, chaotically and hectic, with her eyes wide open? Why is she, an experienced journalist, suddenly surprised by claims that even in the fashion world, decisions are driven by money, not principles? Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention those principles. Such an interesting fact. Andy really loves the principles of journalism, talks about it often and is very proud of it. But when her friend offers to write a commissioned article from Miranda for a tidy sum, that's literally the next scene, by the way, Andy thinks about it for a while, and then she finally agrees. Well, for money, yeah. Now, unfortunately, Miranda herself has also changed, and at first it might seem as if this change is perhaps even deliberate, but after about 10 minutes of running time, we clearly see that this is completely different character, and the creators simply decided to build a symphony of songs and dances on the bones of the original. Unfortunately, I can't embed stills from the film, as my channel wouldn't be taken down for copyright reasons. So you can either take my word for it, or assume I made up everything I said next. Miranda has ceased to be Miranda, not to mention the polished, daring shark she once was. Priestley lost not only her grip and influence at the fashion magazine, but also her self-respect and composure. How did this turn of events arise? The creators attempt to fit an O onto a globe, the globe being our favorite and recognizable image, and the O being pulled relentlessly conveys new subtext and messages. We wanted to portray a lost person who doesn't know how to run a company in the context of global digitalization and social change, where trends are now set by Reels and TikToks, not fashion houses. Nowadays, people don't worship closely magazines, they don't take them into account, and as even Emily said, yes, we'll see her in this film too, every housewife can afford a tire for 3,000, thus becoming part of the brand and the elite. And since there is a general global crisis in the world, even such a notice cannot be dismissed. Initially, the writers wanted to show Miranda's fear for the company's future, but instead, they completely forgot who that person was. And they showed us a new, spineless Miranda, incapable of taking responsibility for herself and the employees. We discussed this incredible dissonance when discussing the cartoon Zootopia 2. It feels like the creators of the sequels either haven't seen the first parts, don't know they exist, or don't understand how the logical cause and effect relationships between the first and second parts work. On the one hand, 20 years have indeed passed, both within the film and between the first and second installments. But on the other hand, we weren't initially shown that the problem of internet restructuring and globalization was a pressing one of the fashion world. We were only briefly introduced to some social media conflict tarnishing the reputation of the catwalk, just to provide a reason to reintroduce Andy to the company. Why not add a few shirts to get things going? There weren't any pointless scenes in the shorter first film, but here it felt like they were deliberately dragging their film out. Miranda and Andy's first meeting doesn't go smoothly. Miranda even says she doesn't know who Andy is and doesn't remember her. Either the creators did this intentionally, fueling the audience's negativity, which further proves my conspiracy theory, which I can read about in the video about Zootopia 2, or they just watched the first part with one eye open. Indeed, if you watch the first film exactly as I described, it might seem like Miranda is an arrogant and narcissistic boss who only thinks of herself, with the rest of her subordinates at her back and calmly throwing her coat at them. But as the film progressed, it became clear that Miranda isn't some haughty stinker who spits in people's faces. She's a discerning business shark who knows the value of time, who, thanks to her vast experience, can immediately see right through a person and tell a lot about them. Miranda was upfront about remembering everyone, even those who were useless to her. And Andy wasn't just an employee. He taught her an incredible life lesson, though you think such a simpleton could teach her everything, right? Things like that aren't forgotten. Here Miranda behaves with absolute arrogance and condescension. Gone is the alluring, captivating coldness and sense of absolute control. It's as if the character is suffering not only from age-related changes, but also from a dueling effect, losing her memory and reflexes.
What the fuck is going on?
Priestley is unhappy that Andy has been appointed to lead the rescue of her and the magazine, but he has nothing to be done. And so the usual work routine begins at our company. Miranda invites Andy to another meeting with advertisers, and then we learn that the magazine's advertisers are the house of Tyre, where Emily, Miranda's former assistant, has become the new manager. So Emily dictates her terms to Priestley. And the terms are not the least bit favorable to the magazine, but our new Miranda keeps her mouth shut and agrees, afraid of losing the advertisers. Frankly, it's not just Andy who's shocked by the new Miranda, but the audience as well. I'm terribly disappointed with this feeble Priestley, who bends over backwards to please yesterday's assistant, and spoiler end, spends the entire 2 hours looking like a child who's lost sight of her mother's on set. For some reason, the creators deliberately decided to humiliate the heroine, and it was painful to watch. Oh, of course, I forgot to mention that ridiculous scene where poor Miranda literally broke into a sweat while trying to hang up her coat when she used to hand it off or to her assistants. Okay, so they wanted to show the change, that management no longer throws clothes at employees. But surely they couldn't have put the item on a chair on an armchair, as if this person doesn't hang up the clothes at home. Meanwhile, his reputation still needs to be saved, and so Andy begins writing her articles, and some of them, strangely enough, bear fruit. Why bother writing articles about Podium magazine on some ancient website when everyone's scrolling through social media feeds? A vigilant viewer on the other side of the screen might notice. And the author, shocked by the stupidity of the plot, dares to fully admit this. Ladies and gentlemen, who please reads articles in the era of Reels on TikTok, especially on no-name sites? The authors themselves pointed out the problem at the speed of word change, precisely because of the active development of social media is leading to a crisis in the fashion industry. This is precisely why the conflict with Miranda arose and quickly escalated, which Andy was hired to resolve. What do articles have to do with it when the heads of the holding companies themselves are watching Instagram? That's needed here isn't a full-time journalist, but a whole team of SMM specialists who will sweat their way through posts on Threads or Reddit
and will work on the long term, because clearly in reputation requires not only these people's experience and hard work, but also time. But okay, we're shown that in some circles a couple of Handy's articles are popular and bearing fruit. I wonder what metrics they even used to track this. A few positive comments aren't a significant indicator, and the number of advertisers hasn't increased. Miranda isn't particularly happy about this, either because for her the results are unsatisfactory, to put it mildly and frankly, really bad, and I agree with Miranda on this point. A couple of articles won't help cure the massive hate here, and now Handy naturally is very upset by these words and goes to ask Nigel for advice.
Yes, remember there was this charismatic, incredible, bright Nigel, played by Stanley Tucci.
So he responds, "Oh, poor Andy, you loved having your drawings judged as a child." It's a blatant rip-off of the first film where they had similar dialogue, and simply asks for minimal feedback on her work. And she's told, well, just take your chances, maybe we'll like it, maybe we won't. And then, well, in order to finally stick up to Miranda, someone pulled Andy's tongue, and she said that she had almost agreed on an interview with Sasha. Sasha is a wealthy genius, billionaire, playgirl and philanthropist. Many people have tried to interview her for years after her divorce, but no one has succeeded. This news brings a smile to Miranda's face, so Andy has to somehow get the contact information of the richest woman in the world.
Do you think you managed to do it?
Nope.
It actually worked. The journalist conducted a real investigation and, following her trail and using scraps of information, managed to get to the contact information just like Agent 007. Achieving her goal and arranging an interview, only she is less like Agent 007 and more like a South Park parody of him. And after such triumph and success, Priestley even invites Andy to a country party at her home. Wasn't one sneaky scene with Nigel enough? There's more to come. Stealing from yourself isn't a crime, right? In short, the same scene unfolds where he lays her some cool designer's clothes for a weekend event. The entire celebrity party elite has gathered at this very event, and our fairy godmother Nigel begs Andy not to get her dress dirty. After the lunch itself, Miranda, either under the influence of nature and the excess oxygen or the alcohol, begins to open up a bit to Andy. She says she's incredibly happy because she might soon be promoted. Thanks to the incredible success with Sasha the billionaire's interview, this has sparked conversation about it. Right after the country rivalry, we're shown another banquet, this time more serious and larger scale. When these people are busy building their reputations or whatever else they are working on, they spend all their time partying and drinking. This event, they are supposed to announce Miranda's promotion to vice president of their fashion company, but unfortunately the main founder and owner dies right during the feast, and his son doesn't exactly want to get involved in such a thing. He believes fashion houses are a huge waste of money and investment, which is actually true, judging by what happens in the film and what we're shown. And the guy doesn't stand on ceremony, taking control, at first launching massive layoffs, and then wanted to get rid of this unprofitable business altogether. And this means that all the characters will lose their jobs and their entire life's work. The most interesting thing is that all this bullshit is tumbled directly on Miranda. In fact, she's the main woman who built all the processes and the entire company, and she simply absorbs it slightly glassy-eyed and doesn't react. In the first film, they were afraid to even look at her and were afraid of her decision. Now she's treated like crap and she gravely slavishly told. The guy, the founder's son, says everything will change after the fashion show in Milan. It will go ahead as planned, I'll pay it with a significant budget cut, and then we'll see what I do with all of you. And this plot twist gives our writers free rein in you sophisticated attempts to humiliate Miranda. Not only are taxis now considered luxury, not business, but they also showed her flaw in economic class for some reason. Miranda from the first film wasn't spineless. She'd had self-respect and composure. She probably would have bought herself a ticket into business. Even though she's so wealthy, she could afford the private jet. And then first they humiliate her with the employee cafeteria, where the founder's son tells her that all her processes are really badly organized, and then they show off that ill-fated plane, and then they cut the entire fashion show's budget. And suddenly, thanks to these cuts, we see Lady Gaga, who was invited to perform at the event.
Well, I was incredibly happy about that. I really love Lady Gaga. She really enhanced this film.
During the Milan show, a series of very important and significant events occur. Andy sees how rich Emily's suitor is, and a brilliant idea enters her head. What if, she thought, she could arrange with this Emily for her suitor to buy the decaying podium, put Miranda in charge, and then peace and harmony would reign. Andy quietly persuades Emily, who happily agrees. They all carefully negotiate with this rich suitor, such as billionaire X, behind Miranda's back. But during the decision about the fashion show, Miranda unexpectedly makes it clear to Andy that she suspects more kind of nefarious conspiracy. Andy and Emily decide to tell Miranda about it, and we're in for a real twist. It turns out the suitor was planning to buy the fashion magazine not for Miranda, but to put Emily in it. Yes, and the former assistant confesses, saying, "Yes, Miranda, you are really old, and I'm young and energetic enough of watching old people roll." Miranda then points Emily in her place, saying, "I sent you to Tyre because you're nobody. Well, I'm true creator and visionary." Often that Emily runs away, and Andrew is left to apologize to Miranda for her stupidity. "I'm speechless as to how this seasoned journalist even achieved popularity and a journalistic calling without realizing such a simple conspiracy was right in front of her. Did she really think that a suitor who loved Emily would simply give Miranda the job of head of the agency?"
How did she manage to work in her field all these years? In the first film, Andy was inexperienced, perhaps naive, but not stupid.
At the banquet the day before the fashion show, Miranda personally approaches Emily's suitor to talk, but it's too late. He's making it clear the deal is done. Miranda, desperate and lost, doesn't know what to do, but then her beloved consoles her and says, "Darling, take a breath. You'll wake up in the morning, have an espresso, and you'll figure something out." After racking her brains that morning, a Sherlock Holmes-level idea struck Miranda. She came up with a strategy and started sticking to it. Early in the morning, she gave Andy a list of contacts to call to sort out any questions on business. And then she went to the fashion show. This large-scale event kicks off with a bang, with songs by Lady Gaga and other celebrity guests. So, it's time to talk about this very fashion showcased in the film about a fashion magazine.
I also wonder what happened to the fashionable outfits themselves.
And it's gone. It's gone. It's all gone.
Yes, if the first film was distinguished by its delicate, graceful, expensive and refined outfits, looking at the picture, you saw this truly high fashion, this scent, this charm, this atmosphere, evoking a scene of sublimity and art. Now this is a circus. Or again, perhaps this is a mockery of fashion houses, which are now focusing their efforts of rethinking the entire concepts of fashion. Well, I just don't want to believe that such bad taste were deliberately created in such a project. I didn't like the fashionable outfits. I couldn't single one out. I'd like to leave this discussion to you in the comments, but in my opinion, not a single outfit would suit any of the characters in this film. We're never shown what kind of questions and dealings Andy handed behind the scenes, but ultimately our main characters fly straight from the fashion show by helicopter to the billionaire's house with Sasha, who is the script's deus ex machina. After all, after 3 years of silence and divorce, the woman went and bought Podium magazine with her billions, thereby scuppering the deal for Emily and her wealthy suitor. Oh yeah, there was also a little subplot with Nigel, like he always wanted to show up, but Miranda didn't notice him, and Miranda noticed it and gave him opportunity to show up, and then his dreams come true. In the end, Podium is saved, Miranda keeps her job, and has a high-paying job and will remain close to Miranda. Nigel unexpectedly reveals at the end that it was he who pitched Andy's candidacy to the founder, and that's why she's back. I liked that twist, that plot thread, and I really enjoyed it. Now for the not so pleasant recap.
Did it make a good movie? In my opinion, the film is failure. The plot is jumbled, as if it was cut into pieces and hastily glued together.
The film's core message from the very first seconds, not only is it a complete failure, but it also fails to really take off. We can draw the conclusion from the first film. Choose yourself and a worthy life, not an eternal race to now here. So what are the conclusions of the second part? The problem was rapidly changing world, staff reductions and revenue optimization. The conclusion is look for sponsors and work, or is it the problem started that life passes us by and we should appreciate it? The only scene that showed this was the death of the founder. Or is it the point that nothing lasts forever, but if you find a ballerina deus ex machina, then it seems like it will last forever? If in the first film Andy chose a dignified life with her loved ones and professional pride, in the second she conveniently forgot about it and even gave up. After 20 years for a successful career as a journalist, should she return to Miranda's back and call to prove her worth again? I said everything about Miranda, who was bullied like a predator bullies his prey. It was unpleasant to watch, to put it mildly. The creators wanted to show that Priestley had become wiser and gentler, as if the world had changed in 20 years. Look, even in meetings she speaks differently than before. But in reality she seems confused, unsure, in many scenes, for example with the coat or in the plane, deliberately stupid. There's no trace of the demanding, focused, goal-oriented and cold leader she once was. One could say that people change, perhaps, but not people like her, who hold a high position in such an industry and lead an entire corporation. I can't understand why the characters, both main and secondary, have become so incoherent. Half of them are completely unnecessary. The plot feels like it was slammed together by an artificial intelligence. Everything is jumped and confused. For example, Andy's romantic arc. I completely skipped it in the main summary. It's utterly boring. Henry meets a guy, they talk a few times, she comes from Milan, and they end up together. There's no charm, no style, no escalating dynamics.
To my great misfortune, it simply grated on in places, or on the contrary was rushed through, as was the case with the ending.
For me, this twist is more cloying than eating a spoonful of sugar, washing it down with condensed milk and a silver of cotton candy. This one definitely want to be rewatched. Unlike the first one, which offered a glimpse behind the scenes of Hound Counter, while the second one was simply contrived or whatever else they can write to do, I was especially offered by the fashion aspect. It was the first thing I noticed missing. Previously, characters communicated through fashion. It was a catalysis for decision-making, but now replace the word podium with a Samsung office, and nothing would change. In my opinion, there's no need for sequels when a film is set in a specific era. I think it's no secret that in the 1000s, model and fashion magazines, catwalk shows, fashion houses and following trends flourished and were something for a cult. Workplace relationships were different. There was a hierarchy between subordinates and bosses, which incidentally is reflected in the TV series The Office, which is very much in keeping with the spirit of the time. Therefore, the perception is similar. A lot of things are relevant now. You can wear anything. Fashion houses themselves have long been experimenting with clothing and trends. Any body shape can appear on the catwalk. There is no cult of thinness, and no one cares what you wear. Therefore, this attempt to modernize the problems in this film setting, oh, body positivity now, oh, we have reels and TikToks, isn't working.
That's why I give it my rating 6 satisfied Catherine out of 10, where I give 5 Catherine to Nigel and his character, and 1 Catherine to Lady Gaga. Do you like this film and fashion? Show your thoughts in the comment below. Good luck to everyone. Bye!